Welcome to Boston Sculptors Gallery, Wood Stone Poem. I'm Andy Moerlein and I'm a sculptor, and I'm really thrilled to see everybody here today. The reason that we're here is to celebrate Sijo, a Korean short poetry style that I became entranced with because of a book that a person that I've never met before sent me. And Dr. McCann, Ph.D., Harvard, Emeritus, and he said that he had an interesting book. And he sent me a book of Sijo about Star rocks. And I have this fascination for rocks, and I was just totally baffled. I said, wow. And there are Korean stones, which I've never seen any uniquely Korean stones. And these stones started to look like something I had never seen before. And I found that really fascinating. I also found the idea of writing Sijo about these rocks fascinating. So I reached out to David McCann, and he said, oh, yes. And he sent me some more things, and I started talking, and then I saw some Sijo that he'd done, and it's a performative poetry style. So I held a contest, and I had people pick out pieces of the work that are in the show and ask them to comment about it. And it's just been a snowball since then. We had one of the submissions turned out to be June Park. She, Dr. June Park, also is a composer and a musician, and she teaches at Berkeley College of Music. And she had students that she thought, well, not only can they look at these and write Sijo, or I did, but maybe my composition students might be inspired. And so we ended up with a whole series of musical compositions that relate to individual works in the show. And that's been really delightful. Some of the people that have responded to this contest don't live in Boston. It's really exciting to have people from all other areas be able to participate in this. So it's been totally inspiring to me, and that's why we're here today. I will not talk anymore. We're going to read some of the poems. We're going to get a chance to hear a spoken word poem that was written by one of the composition students. And although it's not Sijo in style, it shows us that we've gone a long ways in this adventure to try to find the essence of stone, or the essence of language, or some poetic vision of rocks, place, music, ideas, words, what it is that makes us human. So I'm really excited. I'd like to introduce Dr. David McCann. He received his BA from Amherst, taught English for 2 years in Korea, in the Peace Corps. This is what's really phenomenal and just fascinating. When we sat and talked, and we met over Zoom, just hearing your stories about Korea were just really lively and exciting. 32 books. I think I wrote 28. He said, no, it's 32 now. And 31. Have you written any more? I'm working on it. I'm working on another book. There's a whole bunch of accolades I could share. Forgive me, I hate to read things, but I think that when you meet David, and that's what I call him, sorry, Dr. McCann, he's earned his appellations, but he's also earned my friendship. So I'd like to have you come up and join me. We're going to have some fun here. So the book that you shared with me, the book, and then maybe we could read one of the poems.
This is one of two collections of Sijo poems by Min-jeong, one of the little leaders of the Sijo Poets Association in Korea. Very active in trying to get Korean Sijo poetry translated and published around the world so that more people will find out about it, know it, and come to value it. Also a very lively Sijo Poets Association within Korea, pulling together people from the various areas of Korea that normally work in sort of geographical areas, and she and her people bring them together to have an annual meeting, and just an amazingly energetic and dedicated group of Sijo poets. And what's been so much fun for me is that even though I'm sort of on the outside of it all, and writing Sijo in English, translating it and so on, nevertheless, we connected. And they've been so interested in my own work and trying to encourage me to keep after it. They tell me the syllable count for that final line is 3543, and don't you vary away from that. They're very strict about that. And I sometimes do 3724 and things of that sort, and they sort of now, okay, and let it go. But I just found those poems of hers wonderful to read, the poems themselves, and then the images of the stones that go with them are from her own collection of scholar stones. Well, one of the funny things about all this now that I'm thinking of is there's another poet in Korea who I've known for many years, and he looked at me one day and said, "Your name as a poet now is Sowol." And that's stone friend.
That's great.
Oh yes, turquoise, Kindae, one of the images from the book, and the poem in the original Korean sounds like this. 사월이 아니라고 본 내용이 가득하다. 한 아름 꽃을 아래 흐르는 별무더기 청록빛 줄기 사이로 씻지 않은 봄 얼굴. Translation.
I do. I get to do it in my own language. I especially like this one because it reminds me of my mother-in-law. Though it is not April yet, the air is laden with their scent. A cluster of stars glitter under an armful of stamens. The spring face still looks young and fresh between the bluish-green stems.
That's one of her poems. It's just a beautiful example of what she does with the stones.
When we talked about these pieces, one of the things that we did was we picked out individual works. So this piece wasn't finished when I ran the contest, and I finished it. David was like, maybe I would do one too. So I was honored with the original composition. And while you read it, I'm going to give a little bit of activity.
I was just dying to see how that worked. The two images, one shows the piece separated from the other, called complex. The one waiting pilgrim stone carried all the way up from the valley. The creatures uncovered, the narrative moved to the edge of language, translation, how the new song spilled down the sandstone woodward over the layers of joyful trepidation.
And I thought it was very interesting that he used the word trepidation, because that's a word that I struggle with a lot. I mean, I'm frightened when I make art. I'm always pushing myself to do things that make me not feel completely steady or stable or comfortable. And I really exposed myself, and I thought that that was really amazing that you would pick up on that.
I feel the same way about poetry, because I'm writing a poem. I sometimes don't know where it will go, and you just have to trust that it will come out right at the end. And I somehow felt that as I was today.
Dr. Ju Park, as I mentioned, is a composer and a pianist. She's an assistant professor of composition at Berklee College of Music. She writes music that explores the dual nature of existence, simple and complex, obsessive and impulsive, serious and humorous, and tonal and atonal. So I think I told you that June sent in a mission for the poetry contest, and when I wrote her back and said, can you read this for us? She said, well, I'm a little shy, but I said, well, you'll do fine. And the truth of the matter is, she said, can my students write something about this? And so we ended up with some music next weekend. So when you come back again, which you should, and we have a poem that she wrote. Oh, which piece is it? Oh, it's this one over here. Ah. Okay, now this one. This one's really fun because it's called Object. Because it's an object. Here, go ahead. Yes. It's really meant to be played with, so it sits in here. But it's meant to be handled, you know? It's.
Okay. So I'm very glad to be here. I actually wrote two poems for Andy Moerlein. Is about the little chicken. I think it's because I'm a mother. It is about the chicken who is trying to learn every day, trying to walk, trying to fly. So yeah, this is the first point I have. 디디. 병아리 손병아리 가동가동 계집다가 한 걸음 두세 걸음 엄마 따라 백동 그 한 몸 왜 무거워라 나를 지시 무겁다.
I was really curious about chickens, the fluffy cotton chickens, those big ones when they first hatch out. Have you seen them? Oh, they're so cute. Okay, steps, chickens, fluff cotton chickens, wriggle, push, stepping astride. One step, second step, follow. Mother hen, hoppity hop, all one body, so very heavy, like oars rowing, much to handle. Much to handle. Oh yes, such a glorious job. And your thank you.
So the second point that I wrote was about my father. My father worked very hard for his entire life as an architect. And now he retired, and as soon as he retired, he got some back problem and got some back surgery. So now he sometimes walks with a stick. And it's not easy to see then his life and how much he was dedicating to him. So this is the second one. 밤에 쓴 내 머리는 다 타버리는 질빛이야. 한평생 버리자 벗어버려 벗지 못해. 지팡이 지게꾼 마냥 지고 가는 이 사람.
I'll read it. It is my head wearing the crown that is turned as gray as burnt ash. Entire life just thrown away, but what cannot be combed, toss it. Walking stick like the guy with the pack frame. This one just carries and carries on. Lovely poem.
Carol Sijo. Sijo for the stranger. The world as it is, on time's edge, sometimes incomplete remains. The fragility of snowdrops appear in winter's untimely thaw. Even as we tiptoe over a cover of frost, a wound of spring. Perhaps we are born of remnants and needles and yarn to pluck, narrative from the sheep's back to weave into unspoken words. I sit at the desk made of fanciful thoughts, casting on for voice. I nurture a spruce tree, an orphan from my garden. It appears as a seedling in dense surroundings behind our house. As though a promise, nature keeps throwing out its message. Love me. Winter chill in its demise releases the imagination. The future of this planet, grief in your heart, and who will care? You knock on the door of a stranger, they invite you in. And I thought it was very fitting. I think it fits a lot of the pieces in this show. To her, it fits this odd piece called Dust. Object. This piece here is the focus of another piece.
This one is called Mongo, and it's by Polly Brown, who's a member of our poetry group called Every Other Thursday. And you can probably guess when we have our meetings. And it's a group of about 7 or something, 8 poets. We get together and share our poems and talk about poetry. And I mentioned this show here at the gallery, and Polly put together this lovely poem, Mongo. Wooden Mongo, stone heart heavy in her middle, brain basket, rib cage, stick built, see her loping by the river. Her grief stone works as a tether to the morning, to the path. I like that one. You can really feel how a Sijo develops in those 3 lines that it occupies. It draws you in. Sijo poems in Korean also fit just about any Western folk song. The melodies go right together, and it's just a wonderful way to connect across cultures. Even if you don't know the language, you can get a feeling for the shape of a poem and kind of move into it with people. And I think that's what's happening here with Polly's and some of the other poems as well.
It's an intriguing idea that comes up here, and that is the reference that art needs. Certainly we've looked at many Asian artists coming to America and seeing abstract expressions and conceptualism and stuff and being celebrated for their taking on Western culture and challenging it and moving it to another spot. And somehow there seems to be something folk or prosaic or imitative about a Western artist who takes a great fascination with other cultures' medium. There's an appropriation that gets red flagged. And I just find that kind of fascinating. I love the shifts that we face here. When we were getting this together, I realized how few Korean friends I had. And Pak Chaesam was one of my colleagues in a sculpture symposium. And we went up and visited him one time in Toronto, and he's a very fascinating, dear friend. And when I sent him this, he was just totally excited. He said, "Oh my gosh." And so he's actually, every time, have the esteemed David McCann please translate my poem, because he struggles to communicate as well to me as he wants to. We have a friendship that's somewhat language barrier, not exactly, but lightly. And it's just been really fun. So he sent one in.
He did indeed. It's called Tun Namu, the dancing tree. 뿌리에서 태어나 하늘 향한 꿈나무. 머나먼 길 뚝뻑뚝뻑 바람소리 꽃삼보. 얼대어 망치 소리야 가지마다 춤춘다. Can't you just feel the rhythm of it? The dance. It's amazing to me how, even if you don't know the language, you can feel the poem. And
I agree. That was beautiful.
it is.
The dancing tree. born from the roots, tree of dreams faces the sky, staggering down a long, long road, close companion to the wind's voice, turned to ice with sounds of hammers, every single branch is dancing. Okay, well, we have something really cool to do. We have to go over here. We're going to get to watch Sophie Lawrence wrote a Sijo, and then she wrote it in French also. She actually wrote two, and then wrote one in French. So I am totally thrilled. I somehow able to get this kind of onto here, and she read them because she's in college finishing up her finals, and she couldn't come back and perform it in person.
A Light by Sophie Lawrence. In a moment restless, ruffled, mottled, moored, by chance it landed leaning forward, as if to be carried by the wandering wind. When will it be gone, to take flight, a light new and on? La foi de Mardi Gras by Sophie Lawrence. Il ne reste que quelques oses et un foie gonflé perché sur les jambes grêles tenant une cage toute dépouillée de chair. Autrefois dans l'air, ce corps règne sur terre, son esprit s'envole. Mardi Gras Faith par Sophie Lawrence. All that remains are some bones and a swollen liver perched on spindly legs, holding up a silent cage stripped of flesh. Erstwhile aloft, this corpse reigns on earth while its spirit flies free.
So we also, I cannot resist this opportunity to include Stefan Brown's poem that he wrote, basically about the gust over here. But I'm going to play it first, and then we'll go over about gust, unexpected. He is one of the music students I told you, and oh my gosh, his voice is so gorgeous.
Unexpected salute to Oscar. Different yet the same when given more than a glance, both siblings possess a truly refined elegance. Black and turquoise share a great presence of mind and demeanor of poise. Different yet the same when listened to a second time, both never overcame past mountains that must be climbed. Theme 1 and Theme 2 share a yearning for peace, but divergent plans ensue. Pacing hastily beneath a gloomy thundercloud, bitterly brooding over life's past quarrels aloud. Black Theme 1 plots revenge with astute presence of mind, giving in to a dark nature that is not so kind. Walking on a beach with algae water turned blue-green, calmly reflecting on ups and downs somewhere serene. Turquoise Theme 2 seeks to forgive with presence of mind, healing and avoiding life's and algae's toxic binds. Black halves' vertical lines are not to be overlooked. They are chains that forever keep Theme 1 and foes hooked. Unexpected, but until grudges are rejected, bondage to all enemies will one be subjected. Turquoise halves' small hole is also not to be ignored. It is the void where foes stab Theme 2's heart with a sword. Unexpected, though healing from being dejected, trauma can persist to leave two cynics infected.
His diction is perfect.
All these will be online, and hopefully this will be online. And I would have us all just take one more moment to step over here into Donna's show. This show happens to have also incorporate some poetry, and I think that it's kind of an interesting part of the entire show is the way that Donna's put together. So I will let Donna speak here.
Alrighty, thank you, Andy, and thanks everyone for coming this afternoon. My show is called Amazons Among Us, and I'm presenting 4 wood sculptures that are really depicting Amazons, warriors, warrior women, strong women, mothers, and I'm currently a visiting scholar at Brandeis University, and one of my colleagues wrote 4 different poems in response to each one of the sculptures. So I thought I'd share them with you today. This is the beginning. She calls these 4 poems by Manhae. Written for mothers, daughters, wives, and lady lovers, especially intersex, trans, masculine, and chosen family, in harmony with animals, plants, natural elements, and wilderness, for girls and women who were boyish or manly, who have been made feminine in the face of myopic visions. We need your queer courage and strength to struggle together in this fight that requires a womanish touch, to disrupt capitalist-driven, inequitably uneven apocalypse, and to aim for fertile, feral, feminist futures. So the first sculpture that I created is called Alpha Female, and it has an eagle head. It's celebrating my great Aunt Alice, who was one of the first 40 women in the Women's Army Corps during World War II. And she has a tattoo of Athena, which is actually the military insignia they used on the uniforms. So Melkor responds to this with her poem called Alpha. Strong women, leagues of auxiliary essential workers, wearing practical shoes, long days, muscular legs, strong and feminine, warrior and princess, civility and civics, patriotically underpaid, sculpt resistance, nursing nations, refusing milking, chest plates, breast aches, women's stance, looking toward horizons, insisting on humanity. Animate history, part eagle, part cow, eating last, feeding others, body foraging, feeding bodies, making sustenance, taking substance, markings of a warrior goddess. Perform futures, performing politeness, serving country, imagining non-country, bird's view of borders, a pacifist view of conflict, embracing animality, embodying an alternative. The second sculpture that she responds to is called Black Panther. That's a lion-headed sculpture seated on a throne there. She is my response to really the movie Black Panther, like imagining a super heroine instead of a superhero. So Melkor responds with Black Panther, strong women, women warriors, resting on thrones, galvanizing troops, afros puffed, activism righteous, seated on buses, weary and woke, sculpt resistance, wheelchairs, sitting short and strong, weakness misperceived, aged wisdom, connecting women's bodies, naming lesbianism, sharing humanity, animate history, part panther, also black-coated leopards, also Central American jaguars, part comic, part savior, archival margins, Dahomey women warriors, recaptured in capitalist cinema, perform futures, performing Sankofa, recapturing 10-point platforms, examining archived throne photos, a summer uprising, an era of good trouble, disproportionate harm, radical care, and love futures. The third poem is called Civilly, and I I created her based on the Roman goddess Sibylle. She's often portrayed either in a throne flanked by lions or like in a chariot drawn by lions. So I portrayed her as really a lion-headed warrior in a chariot. And Melkor responds with Sibylle, strong women, mountain goddess, feral feline companion, crazy catwoman, fertile protectress, commanding chariot, spring sacrifices, queer jealous lovers, sculpt resistance, rejecting religion, making pagan rituals, defending nature, like indigenous water warriors, like land defenders, hovering over and rooting in our interbeing. Animate history, part mountain, part earth mother, committed to sisterhood, women's villages, giving birth to women wonders, matriarchal indigeneity, indignant martyrdom, toxic murders, perform futures, pursuing rites of nature, engaging rites of passage, chariot transformed to hoverboard, human view to goddess view, earthbound to universal, embracing our plant side, queering connection. And the fourth sculpture I created is Lakshmi Vaj. It's created based on an Indian warrior who, there's a famous composition where, as the British surrounded her kingdom to overthrow her, she grabbed her son, strapped him to her back, left off the castle wall with her sword, and landed on the back of the horse and rode away. So that's the famous composition in history. So my sculpture is Lakshmi Bai, and Melkor responds with Lakshmi Bai. Strong women, queens and goddesses, mutiny leaders, Brahmin girls, tomboys, martial artists, sword fighters, horse riders, sculpt resistance, resisting bionationalism, refusing error making, adopting boys, or girls that are drawn boys, or girls that were once boys, or girls that are also boys, water, more fluid than blood, animate history, weightlifting, lifting baby, carrying child, curling child, rejecting family, wrestling with caste, adopting alternatives, biological transgressions, perform futures, performing intersex, gender transcendence, imagining a non-binary world, animals' view of humanity, not genitals' view of role, embracing human and plant families, embodying wholeness. And then the last poem I'm going to share, it's based on, we have a conversation Thursday night online, and it's called The Future of Feminist Imagination, and it's kind of what artists do. We imagine these things and then we create them, and these become our vision. So it's going to be led by Dr. Chanda Prescott-Weinstein. She's a faculty of astrophysics at UNH. And Melkor responded with her poem called Feminist Steam Intersections. Strong women, sculptor, curator, presenter, animator, professor, painter, performer, artist, weightlifter, mathematician, poet, scholar, physicist, author, feminist, intersectional, STEAM, woven futures, queer connections, sculpt resistance, trained but not disciplined, artistic but improperly framed, undisciplining, rewriting archives, crossing boundaries, misbehaving, an order for disorder, animate history, carving wood, curating collaboration, designing animation, writing words, performing goddess, talking cosmologies, imagining pluriverse, perform futures, embracing chaos, speaking out, sitting in, co-creating transdisciplinary futures, embracing dark matters, feral feminists, rematriating an animator, chair of animation at Leicester University, and she animated the Alpha. It cycles through after this time lapse of me creating Launch Me Back. And then on the video and the performance is Clevia Spiro. She was trained as a weightlifter and she's a performance artist. So those are the four of us that will be in conversation. So thank you all for coming. I welcome you to ask me questions, ask Andy questions. Thanks Andy for hosting this today.